Today, a federal judge basically lit into Pam Bondi, calling out flat out lies in the paperwork she filed about the cases against James Comey and Letitia James. This wasn't a minor correction or a quiet note from the bench. This was the judge tearing apart Bondi's claims as the court digs deeper into the evidence heading toward trial. The big issue right now is Bondi's attempt to defend Lindsey Halligan's appointment as U.S. Attorney in Virginia. Bondi told the judge, in official filings no less, that the indictments were totally legitimate, regardless of who held the position, because she supposedly reviewed all the grand jury transcripts long before Halligan was even put in the job. But today made one thing very clear. The judge isn't buying it, not even a little.
President Trump's appointee for interim U.S. attorney faces a challenge today in federal court as a judge weighs whether Lindsey Halligan was unlawfully given the job. Today's hearing is part of an effort by former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James to get their cases tossed before trial. CBS News legal reporter Katrina Kaufman joins me now with the latest on this move. Katrina, good morning. These are separate efforts essentially doing the same thing. What is in these complaints and what will the judge have to decide?
You're right, Errol, but essentially Letitia James said that these should be combined because her and James Comey are making the same argument here. They say Lindsey Halligan was unlawfully installed as the interim U.S. attorney and she had no authority to prosecute them. They say she's violating two different laws, or Attorney General Pam Bondi is here. One is a statute that designates you can appoint an interim attorney for 120 days. They say Pam Bondi can only do this once, Errol. They also say this is in violation of the Appointments Clause of the Constitution, which says ultimately the president has to name someone that is confirmed by the Senate. Now, what the Justice Department says is that, in fact, they think Pam Bondi can appoint each interim U.S. attorney for 120 days, more than one, they're saying. But even if the judge disagrees here, she's also given a special attorney title to Lindsey Halligan, which she says gives her the authority to bring these cases. Because the real question, Errol, is if she was unlawfully appointed, can these indictments stand?
And how might the outcome impact cases against James and Comey?
I mean, they could potentially ultimately be dismissed. It all depends what this judge decides. So there's the question, was she unlawfully appointed? If so, should the cases still be dismissed? What's really unusual here is that Lindsey Halligan went alone into these grand juries, Errol. She was the only one to sign the indictments. By comparison, judges in other states, California, Nevada, and New Jersey, have disqualified Trump-appointed U.S. attorneys, but they let indictments that were brought while they were in office stay because career prosecutors were deeply involved in those. These U.S. attorneys had minimal involvement. We have a very different situation here with Lindsey Halligan, who played a key role, really the only role, in bringing these cases to the grand jury.
We'll see what happens next. Really interesting story. Katrina, thank you very much.
A federal courtroom was thrown into absolute disbelief today after a judge openly ripped into Attorney General Pam Bondi, accusing her of making misrepresentations in the official documents tied to the cases against Comey and Letitia James. What should have been a simple procedural session turned into a takedown of Bondi's credibility as the judge pressed her legal team on missing details and what looked like false information in her filings. This blow-up didn't come out of nowhere. Tension has been simmering for weeks. Bondi, who has been one of the loudest voices pushing these politically charged cases forward, kept insisting that every part of the indictment process was flawless. But the hearing exposed just how unstable that story might actually be. It's becoming clearer by the minute that she's out of her depth, and she's doing a great job proving it. The judge went straight at one of Bondi's biggest claims, that she played a crucial, hands-on role in reviewing materials from the grand jury. Multiple statements she made about her involvement were called into question, with the judge noting that there was no evidence backing up several of her assertions. The real explosion happened when the court confronted the filings, where Bondi argued that the indictments were solid, no matter who was serving as U.S. Attorney in Virginia. because she herself supposedly went through the grand jury transcripts before Lindsey Halligan was even appointed. Bondi essentially tried to cast herself as the watchdog who made sure everything was legitimate long before Halligan entered the picture.
Welcome back. A federal judge is taking the Department of Justice to task in its handling of the Comey case. James Comey, former FBI director. Judges ordered the Department of Justice to turn over all grand jury materials to lawyers for Comey. That is highly unusual. Judge William Fitzpatrick criticized the Trump-appointed prosecutor Lindsey Halligan for making, quote, fundamental misstatements of the law in her paperwork against Comey. Comey has pleaded not guilty to lying to Congress and obstruction. The current scheduled trial date, January 5th, but recent events makes that a bit murky. Here now, CBS News Justice correspondent Scott McFarland. Pick it up from there, Scott.
The judge not only acknowledged this is rare, the judge even said this is extraordinary, that he has ordered the handover of grand jury materials, including an audio recording from the grand jury, to the defense. That type of material is supposed to be secret, but the judge said he has so many concerns this case might have been tainted and Comey's rights might have been violated that he feels it's necessary to ensure Comey gets a fair deal here. Among the nearly a dozen things, Major, that the judge laid out as concerns or items to be flagged, is what the U.S. attorney said to the grand jury in securing this indictment. According to the judge, Lindsey Halligan, the U.S. attorney newly appointed, suggested to grand jurors that James Comey might not have the capability of testifying in his own defense, or might have that capability of testifying in his own defense. What's more, the prosecutor told the grand jury that among the materials that she'll present to them, there could be more or better evidence still to come in addition to what's in front of them now. Those are among the things the judge said are potentially issues that could impact the case and could potentially lead to a dismissal.
What was supposed to be a narrow procedural fight over Halligan's appointment as U.S. attorney turned into something much bigger, a direct examination of Pam Bondi's honesty. The judge zeroed in on Bondi herself, warning outright that misleading a federal court is not some harmless paperwork mistake. It can trigger sanctions. It can lead to contempt. In extreme cases, it can even open the door to criminal consequences. And as the trial phase gets closer, today's clash leaves Bond on extremely shaky ground. The judge emphasized repeatedly that truthfulness is not optional in these proceedings. It's mandatory. If Bond really did exaggerate or misrepresent her access to those grand jury materials, the fallout could blow up far more than her credibility. It could undermine the prosecution's broader strategy. So now the focus has shifted. This isn't just about the defendants anymore. The spotlight is now pointed directly at Bondi, at her filings, her claims, the gaps in her explanations, and the trail of errors she's already made. And unless she finds a way to convincingly undo the damage, the controversy she created may overshadow the very cases she was trying to bolster. A simple dispute over Halligan's placement quickly spiraled into a full-blown crisis. The judge's sharp criticism, combined with the fact that there's still no clear evidence supporting Bondi's assertion that she reviewed the grand jury transcripts, now casts a shadow over the integrity of the prosecution. You don't have to squint to see the problem. This is the Trump DOJ we're talking about. Nothing ever seems to be as clean as they claim. And the judge's warning couldn't have been clearer. Misrepresentations on federal documents, in plain English lying, isn't just unfortunate. It threatens the viability of the case itself. Bondi now has to worry not only about salvaging the prosecution, but also about her own professional standing. Keep this up, and she could easily become the liability that brings the whole thing down. Or worse, face disciplinary action if the errors pile up. What comes next will unfold over the next several weeks and months. And if you're rooting for the defendants, today was a very good sign. The judge's frustration was focused on Bondi, and this kind of public showing suggests that her filings, arguments, and tactics are going to keep unraveling. And if history is an indicator, she's likely to keep making mistakes, which means the cases she's built may continue to crumble right along with her credibility.